Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. The skewer touched my lip before I could breathe. I jerked back and the sauce smeared my chin. Sam laughed without smiling and pushed again. Heat hit my face and something inside me braced. I already knew I would not bite. I'm Alex, 29, and I learned caution the hard way. I meal prep like a cranky scout and label everything. Sam calls it control disguised as virtue, and he enjoys poking. He leaned in now, eyes bright and stubborn. His hand trembled a little, and that told me more. Eat, he said, barely above a whisper. The deck buzzed with chatter behind us like a warning. I lifted my lunchbox between us like a shield. My food is ready, I said, and kept my voice flat. His jaw clenched and the skewer stopped an inch short. A drip slid off the meat and dotted the slat. He watched it spread and waited for me to flinch. I held his stare and let the silence work. Where did this come from? I asked slowly. He blinked twice and glanced toward the patio cooler. The cooler sat half open and breathing warm air. He nudged the lid with his foot and missed. A thin hiss came from the grill and jumped to my skin. I stepped back and wiped my wrist fast. If that cooler was warm, I was out. Jess drifted over with a plate and a challenge. Just one bite, Alex, she said with a practiced smile. Liam trailed her and folded his arms like a referee. Sam swung the skewer between us like a dare. My ribs felt tight and the afternoon tilted. Why do you trust your leftovers but not this? Jess asked. I opened the lunchbox and let them see the neat rows. Sam snorted and tapped the skewer on the lid. Because he made it himself, he muttered without hiding it. The jab landed and I chose not to swing back. Show me the packaging, I said, and kept it simple. Sam scratched his cheek and stared at the smoke. Already tossed, he replied, too fast for comfort. Jess shifted her weight and looked at the cooler. Something unseen hung between us like a wire. Liam tried humor and it dropped like a stone. If he pukes, you're paying damages, he joked. Sam's smile returned but died quick at the edges. He reached for the fallen tongs and grabbed them barehanded. That careless grip rattled me more than the heat. I moved closer and lowered my voice to a thread. New source? I asked and watched his eyes. He shrugged once and swallowed like it hurt. Cheaper batch, still good, he said without conviction. Cheaper plus warm equals risk, and my stomach knew it. Jess looked from me to Sam and sniffed suspicion. Why hide the details? She asked with a raised brow. Sam rolled his shoulders and set the skewer down. Because no one here trusts me anyway, he muttered. The deflection landed soft, but it still stung. I pointed at the cooler drain and the slow drip. How long has that been leaking? I asked. He stared at the water and didn't answer. His hand flexed on the lid and then let go. The drip kept ticking like a countdown. I snapped the lunchbox shut and slid it under my arm. Not touching mystery meat today, I said and held ground. Sam's face hardened and then cracked with hurt. I rescued this for everyone, he said with heat. Rescued from where hung in the air like smoke. Jess backed up a step and studied him. Tell us straight or pull it off the grill, she said. Liam nodded and kept his plate still. Sam's gaze cut toward the side gate and lingered. I saw the direction and felt the first real dread. He sighed and jerked his head toward the alley. Fine, he rasped and started walking fast. I followed because not knowing would eat me worse. The gate latch stuck and then snapped open. Whatever waited out there would change this group. The side door stuck on swollen wood and I yanked hard. It gave with a crack and slammed the fence post. Sam flinched and kept walking like momentum could hide intent. My pulse synced to his hurried steps and I matched him. Whatever secret lived out here was about to breathe. We cut into the service lane behind the yard. He veered left and stopped near two stacked bins. A plastic ice chest waited under a hanging tarp. Condensation traced uneven paths across the lid like nerves. He lifted the latch and didn't meet my eyes. Warm air hit first and turned my tongue dull. I leaned in out of duty, not curiosity or trust. Sealed packs lay piled with corners puffed and stretched. One had a split seam and a glossy smear. The smell carried a warning that overrode politeness. Close it, I said and stepped back fast. He hesitated like a gambler staring at last chips. I'm trying to make this work, he murmured to himself. He slid the lid down and wiped his palms once. The wipe left traces that made me swallow hard. Where did you get it? I asked and waited quiet. Closing time pickups, he answered with his chin tucked. Most are safe, almost always fine, he added quickly. Almost always has a margin that chews through friendships. I felt as Omithing shifted me from cautious to firm. How long out here? I pressed with my gaze steady. Couple hours, he guessed and looked at the drain. Numbers don't lie when your stomach is the stake. I pictured the sun leaning on that lid all afternoon. He read my face and bristled like I'd judged him. You still eat your own prep stuff, he fired. You microwave it and call it righteous discipline, he pushed. I let that jab pass because the math stayed ugly. Mine stays temp-controlled and tracked by habit. His lived in a box that felt like a trap. Bring it inside and toss the batch, I said clean. We'll pivot to sides and keep the peace, I offered. His shoulders locked and pride took the wheel again. Everyone's waiting on meat, he replied with a grim set. That sentence sounded like a dare wrapped in obligation. A shout drifted from the yard and the latch rattled. Jess called my name with layered suspicion and hurry. Liam's voice followed with a joke trying to lighten nothing. Sam stiffened and grabbed the handle with a stubborn grip. I saw a cliff ahead and he was accelerating. Tell them the source now, I said without raising volume. Or I will and it'll land harder, I warned slow. His stare slid to the cracked seam beneath the tarp. He wanted a loophole where biology had already spoken. Stalling here meant serving it with a smile later. Footsteps approached and the post shivered once. Jess rounded the corner and took in the scene. Her nose wrinkled and her plate dipped toward the gravel. That box isn't cold, she said with her jaw set. She looked at Sam and then straight at me. Is this what he's been pushing on the grill? She asked. Sam's knuckles whitened on the handle and held. My chest tightened because this would mark our group. Mixed pickups near expiry, I answered and didn't blink. Her breath hitched and the plate steadied like a verdict. Liam arrived behind her and cut the tension with wit. That's a hard pass if my weekend is on the line. He peered at the lid and then at Sam's hands. Man, you can't crowdsource refrigeration, he added and winced. Even the joke landed like gravel in a shoe. Sam's face flushed with effort and wounded pride. I'm trying to feed people without wasting money, he pushed. He bumped the chest with a frustrated kick that echoed. The bin wobbled and a corner packet slid into view. I caught the date through cloudy plastic and felt heat rise. That one expired yesterday, I said and pointed low. He froze like the numbers had spoken his language. Jess took a step back and shielded her plate with instinct. Liam's arms dropped and the humor dried up fast. The lane went quiet except for distant laughter inside. I moved closer and kept my words measured for once. We can fix this without humiliating you on that deck. Own it before someone chews a mouthful of regret, I urged. He looked toward the fence like it could rewrite time. His answer would either save the afternoon or sink it. Help me carry it to the bin, he said finally. Relief mixed with anger and didn't feel clean at all. We lifted together and the weight told its story. Liquid sloshed inside and my grip tightened on instinct. He saw my face and winced like the evidence hurt. Jess opened the path and kept her voice clipped. Dump it and wash up, then call a vote, she instructed. Liam nodded and jogged ahead to clear the way. I followed with the chest and the choice solidified. We were not eating a mystery born in the heat. At the dumpster he hesitated for one last stubborn beat. I could sort the good packets, he tried weakly. I shook my head and reached for the latch. One bad piece ruins the whole pool, I said. He let go and the hinge thumped like a period. We tilted the load and let everything slide. Packs hit the bottom and burst with ugly sounds. He turned away and pressed his hands to his face. For a second I felt the sting of his effort. Then I remembered the near miss and held the line. Water from the hose blasted across our wrists. I scrubbed until friction burned more than nerves. Sam stared at the stream and breathed through his teeth. He wasn't a villain to me, just reckless and proud. Inside, guests laughed, unaware of the cliff we'd skirted. Tell them before rumors grow teeth, I said low. He nodded once and looked smaller than an hour ago. This would mark him for months if handled wrong. It would also mark me if I hid the truth. We dried our hands and headed for the crowd, ready. We stepped onto the deck and conversations froze on contact. Sam rubbed his palms on a towel and faced the group. I stood beside him so the Dodge had nowhere to run. He opened his mouth and the music from inside cut. Jess lifted her chin and waited for truth to land. Food change, I announced before his spin could start. Protein is off the menu today, I added and held steady. Paper plates paused midair and a couple forks hovered. Sam swallowed and nodded once without hiding the hit. Liam angled closer like he expected impact on his shoes. Why? Jess asked, already bracing for fallout, not theater. Source and handling were questionable, I replied and kept it clipped. Sam squeezed the towel until his knuckles went colorless. We tossed the whole batch, he managed with a rough exhale. The word whole worked like a pin in a balloon. A cough broke left and a guy raised his hand. I already tried a bite earlier, he blurted with wide eyes. He spat into his napkin and looked at me for orders. Rinse and sip water, I told him and gestured inside. His girlfriend hurried him through the door without debate. Jess moved fast and collected nearby plates like a bouncer. She tipped everything into the trash with one sharp motion. New plan, she declared and signaled toward the kitchen. Liam pulled out his phone and typed a blast warning. If someone else was arriving late, they'd read it first. Murmurs rose like steam and then settled into stares. Sam rolled his shoulders once and tried to square up. I thought it would be fine if cooked hot, he muttered. That line poked every nerve left in me today. Temperature abuse doesn't vanish on flame, I said and didn't blink. Are we panicking? Someone asked near the drink cooler. No, I answered sharper than I meant, then softened. We reduced exposure and will watch symptoms, I added calm. The guy who tasted returned and forced a thumbs up. His face still looked unsure and that kept everyone quiet. Sam scanned the faces and found no safe harbor. Does this nuke my standing with you all? He asked. The towel twisted again and I heard fabric strain. That depends on what you do next, I told him. Accountability either builds bridges or burns what's left. I can run to the store and grab replacements, he offered. Jess checked the time and shook her head with finality. Delivery now, receipts later, she countered and tapped her phone. Liam added 2 large salads and a tray of fries. I covered the rest and hit confirm without blinking. While we waited, I gathered the tools near the fire. I dropped them into the sink and turned the water full. Sam scrubbed beside me like he wanted redemption fast. We worked without talking and the rhythm steadied us. I could feel his regret starting to outpace his pride. The guy who sampled hovered again with jittery hands. Who do I call if I feel off? He asked. Urgent care if fever starts, otherwise monitor and text, I answered. Jess was already drafting a message with clear steps. Liam snapped a photo of the instructions for the chat. A knock rattled the gate and a neighbor leaned in. Something stinks near the back bins, she said with a grimace. My stomach tightened because the disposal had not ended clean. Sam's shoulders fell and the towel finally dropped limp. We owed that neighbor an explanation and a cleanup. I'll handle the back, I told Jess and grabbed bleach. Sam reached for the bottle too and met my eyes. Let me fix what I broke, he said and stood firm. I weighed the offer and gave a single nod. We split tasks and the room watched our truce form. Before we moved, Jess's phone buzzed with a new alert. Her eyebrows climbed and she turned the screen toward us. A post showed Sam posing with a stack of bargain packs. Caption read, Big haul rescued for tonight, zero waste heroes. The crowd saw it at once and the air snapped tight. Sam stared at his own grin like it belonged to someone else. He reached for the phone and stopped short mid-grab. I thought it would impress people, he whispered through shock. No one moved and even the ice in cups felt loud. Outside, the neighbor knocked again, harder this time. I reached the gate first and unlatched it fast. The neighbor stood with folded arms and a tight mouth. Your trash reeks into my yard, she snapped without warming up. Sam hovered behind me with washed hands and shallow breath. Show us where it's worst, I said as my stomach nodded. She led us along the fence with quick, clipped steps. The stink gathered near the bins like a threat. Flies clouded up and settled again on the rim. Sam swallowed and grabbed the lid with a grim look. We dumped questionable meat earlier, I told her straight. Then bleach everything now, she fired back with zero patience. I have kids outside and a dog already sniffing. I get it, I answered and lifted the bottle. Sam dragged the hose closer and twisted the spigot hard. Water hammered the bin wall and splashed our shoes. I poured a steady stream and scrubbed with force. The runoff turned foam and carried bits toward the drain. We kept working until the smell thinned and our arms shook. The neighbor watched our pace and finally unclenched a notch. Do it again, she said, not asking, and stayed to see. We repeated the rinse and flooded the drain channel. I checked for clogs and cleared the last clumps fast. Sam coughed once and leaned on the fence to steady. The neighbor nodded at the second pass like a judge. Better, she acknowledged, but alert people if anyone gets sick. We already told the guests to monitor, I replied calmly. Messages going out with steps and timelines tonight. She looked from me to Sam and back again. Delete that hero post while you're at it, she added. Sam flinched like the words stung more than the disinfectant. We returned to the deck and the room tensed. Jess stood center with her phone raised like a badge. Take the post down now, she told him without ceremony. Sam pulled out his phone and stared at the screen. His thumb hovered and then the photo vanished with a tap. Archive the story too, I urged before he could stall. He nodded and cleared the spotlight shot and the caption. Liam confirmed it on his feed and finally exhaled. The crowd loosened a notch yet still watched us hard. Accountability had to continue, or this would rot later. A knock hit the door and delivery bags changed the air. Jess waved the drivers through and moved people toward plates. Salads here, fries there, bread along the table, she directed. I lined up tongs and disposable gloves near the spread. Sam pulled on a pair and looked at me once. You good to help serve? I asked without sugar. He nodded and started portioning like a man repenting. I watched his movements for shortcuts and saw none. He paused to trade gloves when he touched his phone. Small things matter when trust sits on a thin edge. The guy who sampled earlier hovered with a glass. Feeling normal so far, he reported with a shaky grin. Keep hydrating and check in by evening, I replied. Jess brought him a bowl and a side of bread. His girlfriend squeezed his hand and that steadied the patio. While people ate, I drafted a group message with bullet points. I outlined what happened and the actions taken immediately. I added the monitor window and the local clinic line. Liam mirrored it into the chat with timestamps and clarity. Sam typed underneath with a direct apology and refund offer. The neighbor from earlier reappeared at the gate again. She sniffed once and gave a thumbs up to Jess. Smells mostly gone, she called, thanks for moving fast. Come grab a plate if you want, Jess offered gently. The neighbor declined, but her tone softened a degree. A man near the cooler raised a hand halfway. Do we owe money for the delivery? He asked. I covered it and Sam will reimburse later, I said. Sam lifted his wallet and mouthed yes with sincerity. The logistics landed clean and unclenched a few shoulders. Mid-bite, my phone buzzed with a new notification. A stranger had reposted the earlier haul photo already. Comments rolled in with clapping emojis and zero context. I felt a cold prickle because rumors run faster than fixes. We need a public correction before this mutates, I said. Jess nodded and handed me her phone for a joint statement. We wrote a short note with facts and next steps. No drama, no blame, only decisions and safety measures. Sam added his name at the end and hit post. We watched the share counter tick while forks paused midair. A couple guests drifted toward the fence with questions. Was anything cross-contaminated earlier? One asked nervously. We sanitized surfaces and switched tools before serving, I answered. He glanced at the sink where everything still dripped clean. He nodded once but kept scanning like a parent. The neighbor's dog barked twice and then went quiet. I took that as a good sign for the alley. Sam leaned on the counter and finally took a breath. His eyes looked raw but focused in a new way. He set down the towel and stood straighter than before. Jess clinked a glass lightly and drew eyes without shouting. Thank you for pivoting fast, she told the group. No more meat tonight, and that's non-negotiable, she continued. If anyone feels off later, text immediately, she finished. Silence settled for a beat, and then chatter returned cautious. Liam slid up beside me and kept his voice low. Your call saved us from a hospital visit, he said. I shook my head because luck still played a role. We caught it early, and that's the margin tonight, I answered. He squeezed my shoulder once and moved to toss plates. Halfway through cleanup, another ping lit the group chat. A late friend wrote that he had eaten 2 skewers earlier. He left an hour before the confrontation and felt queasy now. My chest tightened and I texted him precise instructions fast. Take temperature now and drink water, call if it spikes. Sam read the message and went pale at the edges. He typed a personal apology and offered to drive him. Stay reachable, I wrote, he might need urgent care tonight. Sam nodded and stared at the screen like a lifeline. This was the fallout we feared, and it was real. We cleared the grill area and locked fuel knob. I checked the patio cooler again and set fresh ice. Everything inside now was sealed and safe by sight. Jess logged the disposal time on a sticky note. Evidence gets blurry unless you write while it's fresh. The late friend replied with a normal temp and mild cramps. Relief slid through the group, but no one cheered. Keep us posted every hour until midnight, I wrote. He agreed and sent a thumbs up that looked shaky. Sam's shoulders eased a fraction, though his eyes stayed heavy. Guests began drifting out in pairs with cautious goodbyes. Some hugged Sam with short, stiff arms and quick pats. Others waved from the steps and avoided direct engagement. I watched each exit like a scoreboard of trust. It wasn't a disaster anymore, but it wasn't fine. When the yard thinned, Jess stacked dishes and breathed out. Next time we do potluck with assigned items, she announced. Meats require proof of purchase and temperature checks, she added. No one argued because boundaries make events livable. I nodded because structure would keep friendships from fraying. Sam approached and held out an envelope with cash. Partial payback for tonight and the delivery, he offered. I took it and counted once for accuracy and fairness. We'll settle the rest after we confirm everyone's okay, I said. Money never repairs a wound alone, but it helps start. My phone lit again with the late friend's update. He felt better after food and rest and lukewarm tea. No fever, no vomiting, only lingering nerves and embarrassment. Keep monitoring until morning and message if anything shifts, I texted. The thread filled with supportive replies, and that mattered. We circled back to the alley for a final check. The bin area stayed clean and the drain ran clear. I sprayed one more pass to be sure and breathe easier. Sam stood beside me in silence without his usual swagger. Tomorrow I'm calling the store to ask about donations, he said. Do it above board and with proper storage or skip it, I answered. He nodded without flinching and put away the hose. You were right to refuse the bite, he admitted finally. That push came from pride and fear of waste, he added. Owning the motive changed the weight of the day. Back on the deck, Jess handed out take-home containers. She pressed one into Sam's hands and met his eyes. No hero moves for a while, only transparent ones, she told him. He agreed with a small nod that felt honest. We packed leftovers and wiped surfaces until they squeaked. As twilight settled, the group chat pinged one last time. The late friend confirmed steady vitals and no more cramps. A collective exhale rippled through icons and names and hearts. Sam typed a final apology and promised new standards tomorrow. I stared at the word promise and felt cautious hope rise. We locked the gate and checked the alley once more. No smell, no flies, no neighbor waiting with folded arms. The yard sat quiet and tired, yet not broken. Sam stood beside me with empty hands and open posture. Next cookout I'll bring veggies and receipts, he offered. Next cookout you'll bring honesty first, I replied and held his gaze. He nodded and didn't look away for once. That moment felt small and solid like a new brick. It wouldn't erase the day or the post or the fear. It would hold weight when the next test arrived. My phone rattled the nightstand and I grabbed it fast. The late guest texted that cramps punched back at dawn. He added dizzy spells and a wave of nausea. I'm coming now, I wrote and shoved on shoes. A second ping arrived with a shaky location pin. I drove like a metronome and parked near urgent care. He leaned against the wall and breathed through his nose. Sweat beaded at his temples and his lips thinned. Inside, I urged, guiding him past the sliding doors. A nurse waved us forward with quick, practiced motions. Onset after meet last night, he managed between shallow breaths. Any fever? The nurse asked while snapping on gloves. Normal earlier, he whispered and squeezed the chair arms. I filled the intake line by line without embroidery. Exposure window, single bite, symptoms rising through morning. They drew blood and handed him electrolyte packets. We'll run panels and update if flags appear, the nurse said. I stepped aside and texted our group with bullet points. No drama, just timing and steps and a shove toward water. Replies stacked up with calm checkmarks and careful questions. Sam arrived with tight shoulders and eyes rimmed red. He hovered near the doorway like a kid awaiting punishment. How bad? He asked and braced for impact. Manageable for now, I answered with measured tone. He stared at the IV bag like it held judgment. The clinician returned with a simple, pointed request. Source details, packaging, storage conditions, any photos, she said. My stomach dipped because that trail was thin. Post was deleted, Sam muttered while rubbing his brow. We can recover cache or screenshots, I countered without blinking. I pulled up the repost that never disappeared. The hall image loaded with that triumphant caption. The clinician photographed the screen and wrote a case number. Until results arrive, clear liquids and rest, she said. Report any fever, even a mild one, she added. On my way out, a number flashed from an unknown office. Public health, the voice announced in a firm cadence. Complaint tied to a social post from last night. We need a walkthrough on statements today, she continued. 11 o'clock at the address listed on the invite. I looked at Sam and held the phone away. Inspection at 11, I said and watched him swallow. I'll unlock the side gate and start gathering notes. He nodded once, then again, slower than his old rhythm. Regret does its work when appointments get official. We left the clinic with a plan and a countdown. The patient sipped from a cup and gave a thumbs up. Text us if anything shifts, I told him at the curb. He waved weakly and settled under a thin blanket. We split for the house with Silence riding shotgun. At the yard, Jess already had gloves and buckets ready. Health department coming, I said. ND. She didn't flinch. Good, she replied and set aside fresh wipes. Liam printed the group message for documentation and timestamps. No one argued with procedure when stakes were visible. 2 inspectors arrived on schedule with small notebooks. They asked Sam to describe his acquisition pattern succinctly. He swallowed, then outlined the pickup time in the alley. Their pens scratched as they mapped contact points and surfaces. Demonstrate thermometer use, one requested with a cool stare. Sam opened a drawer and produced a digital probe. He cleaned the stem and pierced a thawing pack of vegetables. Not meat, the inspector noted and waited still. We had tossed everything protein-related the night before. Document that disposal, she said and lifted an eyebrow. I handed over timestamps and the neighbor's earlier complaint. Drain flushed twice with bleach, area scrubbed thoroughly, I reported. They took photos of the clean channel and the fence. Where is the waste now? The taller one asked. In the dumpster awaiting pickup this afternoon, I answered evenly. They photographed the container and marked the serial number. Next time, keep sample packaging for traceability, the note read. Also, no room temperature holding beyond 2 hours, she added. Sam nodded and accepted a card with training links. Mandatory course by month's end and written policy for events. The shorter inspector pointed at the grill stand. Any food served after the disposal, she asked quickly. Only delivery items and sealed produce, Jess replied while gesturing. Tools sanitized before plating and gloves switched between tasks. They checked the sink and found everything drying in racks. One guest left earlier and reported cramps, I disclosed. Clinic visit underway, and will forward results when available. They wrote the clinic name and the triage timestamp. Monitor all attendees for 48 hours, the taller one said. Send a list of everyone who ate potential exposures. They departed with a warning, not a closure. We stood in the yard and let the quiet settle. Sam's hands twitched like he wanted to rebuild the day. "Do the course with me?" he asked, voice low. I waited and felt something heavy tilt toward yes. "Only if you lead the apology," I answered plain. Video captions and a comment with clear steps. He exhaled and stared at the floorboards until focus returned. "Help me write it, no spin," he requested. We moved inside and pulled chairs to the counter. We drafted lines that owned choices without self-pity. We named the failures and the actions taken immediately. We included monitoring guidance and the inspection summary. Jess read it out loud and cut the extra flourish. The final script felt blunt, clean, and accountable. Sam recorded without filters while I held the phone. He stumbled once and kept going without a reset. He posted and pinned it across his channels. Within minutes, comments asked for proof and receipts. We attached the inspector's business card and the timing log. My device buzzed with a message from the clinic. "Preliminary labs normal, continue observation and hydration," it read. I forwarded the note to the chat with 2 lines. No celebration, just tempered relief and a reminder to watch. Sam closed his eyes for a second, then reopened. A notification chimed from an unknown contact labeled store manager. "Your post mentioned pickups from our location," the text read. "We have an approved donation program that requires chain of custody. Interested in volunteering to learn it the right way?" Sam stared at the offer like it contained a map. He typed a careful response and requested a meeting. "Training first, no shortcuts," he added after a beat. I watched his thumb slow down instead of sprint. That pause looked new and earned, not performative. Jess met my gaze and gave a slight, satisfied tilt. The neighbor pinged the group with a final update. "Alley clear, no odor, thanks for cleaning promptly," she wrote. Jess replied with gratitude and the inspection report. The neighbor sent an okay and a little heart. One less fire, but the big one still smoldered. Another message landed from a guest who bailated early. "Had half a stick before leaving, stomach feels tight now." I sent the same step-by-step we'd shared before. "Water rest, check temperature, call if it climbs." He acknowledged and set an hourly check-in timer. Afternoon stretched into logistics and calls and cold calculations. Sam researched the training module and printed the schedule. He entered his card details for the course fee. "Consider it penance and insurance," he muttered with a wince. I appreciated that he didn't look for a discount. We drafted a new event policy in plain terms. Proof of purchase for perishables and documented cold storage. Thermometer readings logged on arrival and before cooking. Any doubt means disposal without debate or ego. Jess formatted it as a shareable document for our chat. Liam returned from a pharmacy run with oral rehydration. He placed the packets on the counter and leaned back. "Any updates on the clinic guest?" he asked. I checked the thread and saw steady texts each hour. "Stable so far," I answered, keeping my voice level. Sam scrolled his feed and faced another ripple. A local foodie account reposted his apology alongside the warning. Comments split between praise for transparency and jokes about poisoning. He winced but didn't argue in the replies. "Let them talk," I said, silence plus follow-through wins. Near evening, the manager called instead of texting. "Donation rules are strict, refrigeration is non-negotiable," her voice carried. "Weekly pickups supervised by staff, transport in approved coolers. Fail once and the program locks you out indefinitely." Sam listened, took notes, and agreed to everything without pushback. "First session tomorrow at 9, she concluded and paused. "Bring someone you trust if you want accountability baked in." Sam looked at me and I raised an eyebrow. "If I come, I'm not a silent partner," I warned. "Good," the manager replied, "I prefer witnesses who speak." After the call, we tested the thermometer on ice water. It read exactly where it should with no drift. Sam logged the number and the time and his initials. He set a reminder to calibrate at the start of shifts. These tiny, boring actions felt like bricks in a wall. The guest from the clinic reported dinner stayed down. Still no fever, mild cramps fading after rest. We breathed easier but refused to declare victory. "One more day before we relax," I posted to everyone. Thumbs and hearts filled the chat without loud relief. I packed my lunch for tomorrow while Sam watched. He noticed the labels and the timed containers and the scale. Teach me that routine after training, he asked quietly. Happy to, but you'll hate the discipline at first. I'll hate the alternative more, he answered with a dry smile. Night edged in and the house settled into cautious peace. Jess stacked the last container and wiped the counter once more. Liam yawned and waved on his way to the door. We walked him out and checked the alley again. Clean, silent, uneventful, the way I wanted it. My screen lit one last time with a fresh alert. Public Health scheduled a follow-up call for midday tomorrow. They requested contact info for every attendee who ate early. They also asked for the original photo files with metadata. Sam swallowed and whispered, I deleted everything, but the cloud remembers. I looked at him and felt the old tension edge back. We'll pull backups at sunrise and send what they need. He nodded with resolve rather than panic or spin. The night didn't feel finished, it felt paused mid-frame. Morning would decide if we were building trust or patching leaks. I powered the laptop and pulled the cloud panel open. Sam hovered behind me and cracked his knuckles once. If the cache is gone, I'll call the platform, I said. A thumbnail appeared with the haul shot and embedded data. I clicked download and felt the clock breathing on us. We packaged the files and typed the case number. Jess checked the list of attendees and trimmed duplicates. Liam verified phone numbers and set a blind copy group. Send the originals in the contact sheet, I instructed. The cursor blinked like a dare while we attached everything. Public Health called before I hit submit. Confirm the time the photo was taken, the agent asked. 17:28, metadata attached, I answered without decorating. Send immediately and keep your line open, she concluded. I pressed send and watched the progress bar crawl. Sam paced a tight loop near the sink. Training starts in 20, he muttered, eyes on the door. We finish this upload first, I countered with a glance. The bar filled, the email flipped to sent and chimed. Go, I said, I'll handle the follow-up call. He grabbed his keys and paused halfway to speak. Don't soften anything for me today, he blurted. Honesty is the only shot we have, I replied. He swallowed and left with shoulders squared instead of rounded. I listened to silence settle and waited for the ring. It came fast and clinical and to the point. Lab update from the clinic guest, the agent began. Markers within normal range, symptoms likely resolving, she continued. Maintain watch through tonight and document any changes, she finished. Relief washed in, thin but solid, not fireworks. I pushed the news to our chat with crisp lines. No emojis, only steps and a promise to report. Jess replied with a single checkmark that felt steadier. Liam added a clean copy of our event policy draft. I pinned the message so no one missed the thread. The store manager wrote that training started on time. He arrived early and brought a notebook, her text read. We're Cove. Ring transport temperatures and donor agreements, she added. Join for the last segment if you can, she offered. I grabbed my bag and locked up the back gate. Inside the warehouse office, a thermometer chart filled the wall. Sam stood by the trainer with sleeves rolled and pen ready. He didn't look for me, he focused on the board. Demonstrate a receiving check, the trainer instructed, pointing to a cooler. Sam measured, logged, and repeated the numbers aloud without wobble. The manager watched and nodded once at his form. Now show corrective action for a borderline reading, she prompted. He labeled the crate for rejection and documented the call. Then he read the script for notifying donors and volunteers. It came out clear, plain, and without hero tones. She turned to me and lifted an eyebrow for input. Build redundancy and remove ego from this step, I said. 2 signatures for every acceptance and a photo on file. Sam wrote it down like it was oxygen and not advice. The manager underlined it and added it to the template. We wrapped with a short quiz and a certification printout. Sam tucked the paper into a folder without theatrics. Standard operating procedure lives above your pride, the trainer stated. He nodded and didn't try to sell a story. That quiet earned more trust than any speech. At the exit, my phone vibrated with the next call. Public health again, voice steady and slightly warmer. No confirmed illness as of now, she reported cleanly. Maintain monitoring and send a final status at 24 hours. Consider the advisory closed if no symptoms escalate. I exhaled through my teeth and let tension leak. Understood, we'll finish the window and report, I answered. Sam caught the tone and searched my face for clues. We're not cleared by heroics, I said, we're cleared by time. He accepted that line and didn't push for celebration. We drove straight to the neighbor's gate with a gift card. She opened at once and studied our posture first. Air's fine today, she said, arms finally relaxed. We're sending a closed report tonight after the window, I said. She took the card with a firm nod that felt earned. Back home, we posted a midday update without fluff. Monitoring continues, training completed, inspection notes implemented, the message read. We attach the new policy and a sign up for duties. People join slots for receiving checks and temperature logs. The structure formed a spine where improv used to sit. Evening crept in and the chat stayed quiet. Silence can mean peace or apathy, I kept watch. At 7, the clinic guest pinged with another check. Better, ate toast, walking around, no fever, he wrote. I let my shoulders drop an inch, only an inch. Sam brewed tea and placed a cup near my keyboard. No speech, no angle, just a simple olive branch. We reviewed the pinned policy line by line again. Any doubt equals discard, he read with steady cadence. That one is for me, he added, almost a whisper. Jess joined by video and held up a clipboard. Assignments confirmed, she reported, scanning her list. Sam, you're on documentation and supply inventory, she continued. Liam, you're cross-checking every reading before service, she finished. I took oversight with final sign-off and emergency authority. A new notification popped from the foodie account. They had appended our update under the old repost. Transparency followed by training, their caption read dryly. The comment section shifted from jeers to cautious respect. It wasn't applause, it was room to stand again. At 9, Public Health requested one more detail. Confirm the disposal pickup took place, the agent asked. I snapped a photo of the emptied container at the curb. Attached the timestamp and the hauler's receipt immediately. Her reply came quick with a simple thank you. With the last task done, we faced the quiet house. No clatter, no crowd, only the hum of appliances. Sam leaned against the counter and looked me in the eyes. I shoved that skewer at you because I wanted affirmation, he admitted. His fingers flexed once, then stilled like a decision. I didn't trust the chain and I won't apologize for that, I replied. I will own the delivery and the hard edge, I added. I'd rather bruise a friendship than hospitalize a friend. He absorbed it and didn't reach for a defense. Growth looks boring, it sounds boring, it changes everything. We walked the perimeter one last time before shutting lights. I checked the cooler seals and the thermometer reminder. Sam put the certification on the fridge with a magnet. It looked plain, it looked necessary, it looked right. The house felt lighter without shortcuts hiding in corners. At 10, the last guest from yesterday checked in. All good, no fever, appetite back, the text read. I forwarded the message to the thread with 2 words. Stable, continue, the chat returned quiet acknowledgement. 1 hour left before the window ended and counted clean. We used that hour to draft a standing pledge. Events follow the policy, no exceptions, no winging it. Receipts kept for 30 days and logs archived weekly. Any deviation alerts the group immediately and pauses service. Everyone signed in the chat with initials like a contract. The clock hit the 24-hour mark and held. I wrote the final status and attached the logs. Public Health acknowledged receipt and closed the advisory. Thank you for cooperation, the email ended with neutral tone. Neutral felt perfect, neutral meant we did our job. I locked my lunchbox for the morning and clicked it shut. Sam rinsed the mugs and set them upside down. He looked toward the yard like it owed him penance. Next time I bring receipts before I bring heat, he said. Next time you ask before you push, I answered. He lifted a hand and waited to see if I'd take it. I did because lessons stick when you leave room for them. His grip was firm, not desperate, not performative. We stood there longer than needed and then stepped back. Trust doesn't reset, it rebuilds piece by piece under light. I turned off the porch switch and listened for anything off. Nothing stirred, the alley held steady and quiet. No whine, no drip, no neighbor's knock at midnight. I breathed once and felt the arc settle in my chest. No epilogue, just a boundary that finally held.